Impeach Big Fani is the new call coming out of Georgia from State Senator Colton Moore. He says, all right, enough of this already. We got the most ridiculous RICO racketeering prosecution anybody's ever seen. Big Fani is really going big this time. She's going into Michigan and Pennsylvania. She's talking about Arizona. We're all asking ourselves, who is this woman? What does she think she's doing? She's not a federal prosecutor. And other people are pointing out that this whole grand jury proceeding was about as botched as you could get. Not only did we have the documents that were released early, we had other problems. They had all the grand jurors come squeezing in on a Monday. It was supposed to be Monday and Tuesday, and the whole thing went awry. We know that they published the charges before the charges should have been published, and it was just a catastrophe. They had cameras in the courtroom. Everybody was doing this big performative thing. And the question is there any basis for any of these charges, or all of these legitimate things that politicians do all the time? Now, I want to start with some other shenanigans about what was happening here, because this entire prosecution seems like it just jumped out with a lot of problems, and it happened very, very quickly, and the question was why. We know that we had witnesses scheduled to come and hear in front of the grand jury on Tuesday, but they didn't do that on Tuesday because they were dragged there on Monday, and they were told, you're testifying now, and this is going to be done tonight. Well, why? Why could that be? Well, if you rewind the clock a little bit, remember on Friday, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland came out and appointed David Weiss as special counsel, and we all were sitting here scratching our heads going, what on earth? Special counsel? For what? You already told us that he could do all the things a special counsel could do. You didn't need special counsel, and then his plea deal has suddenly gone awry, and now, because an IRS whistleblower came out with statements, 2 of them confirmed by FBI special agents, now you're suddenly appointing him as special counsel? So the whole thing was just nonsense, and everybody knew it. And so they needed a big distraction. They dropped that disgusting sack right on us on Friday, and Monday they needed a story change, and boy did they get one. Newt's got inside scoop from sources.
That I am told, this is hearsay, but I am told by a reliable source that Friday evening somebody from Washington called the district attorney in Atlanta and said, you have to indict on Monday. We have to cover up all of the mistakes we just made with Weiss. And she said, apparently, my jurors aren't coming back till Tuesday. And they said, you didn't hear me. You have to indict on Monday.
Get your Fanny on it.
She said, well, they're not going to get here before noon. They said, it doesn't matter. She said, this means it's going to be 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock at night. They said, it doesn't matter. We need the news media shifting off of
who made
Weiss.
that phone call?
We don't know. And I'm telling
Barack
you up front,
Obama?
this is hearsay, but it's from a person who has remarkably good
I
sources.
totally believe it, though, because that would explain why they leaked and they messed up on the clerk document, why she was exhausted, and why they had the 11 p.m. press conference, Mr. Speaker.
Everything was messed up. They had to squeeze it in because the news cycle was very bad for their guy, and that would explain the accidental publication. They were like racing. She's like, go, 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 get it filed. Just get it in there. Oh, it gets published. Somebody in the media catches it. Oh, crap. And the Pace and CNN, they were outside with their cameras the entire day. In the morning, it was like, well, it's like 1 or 2 witnesses. They're having a lemonade, reading a book. They might be called, very loungy. And then that afternoon, they're like, we're on witness 5 of 10. They're like, hey, what do you think of Trump? He's a criminal. Perfect answer. Next witness. What do you think of Trump? He's an insurrectionist. Nailed it. Next witness. And they got it all done. And so now this guy, Georgia State Senator, an American hero as far as I can tell. Now we're just getting to know him. But he is walking right into the lion's den. Big Fani's lion's den. And she, as we know, is prosecuting 18 other co-defendants. She's just going wild here, saying if you even thought about supporting Donald Trump, conspirator, racketeer, you're in trouble, you're going to get the death penalty. So this guy is saying, all right, enough, Big Fani. We've had enough of you. Says, as Georgia State Senator Colton Moore from District 53 from Georgia's Freedom Caucus, the vice chairman, says, I am officially calling for an emergency session to review the actions of Big Fani Willis. She says, America is under attack. I'm not going to sit back and watch as radical left prosecutors politically target political opponent. Hey, at least someone's doing it. Shout out to Colton Moore. We got one, everybody. Yay! All right, so Colton Moore sends this letter August 17th. Says, Dear Governor Kemp, we, the undersigned, being duly elected members of the Georgia House of Representatives and the Georgia Senate, and comprising 3/5 of each respective house, pursuant to Article 4, Section 2, Paragraph 7b, hereby certify to you, Governor, in writing, with a copy to the Secretary of State, that in our opinion, an emergency exists in the affairs of the state, requiring a special session to be convened under that section for all purposes, to include without limitation the review and response to the actions of Big Fani Willis. Sincerely, Colton Moore, American hero, copying Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, Georgia Senate District 53. Now you'll see he says in follow-up, he says, we must strip all funding and, if appropriate, impeach Big Fani. I'm calling on patriots across America to join me in this fight. Join and donate here, my friends. And so this is the link. You can find Colton Colton Moore over on the Twitters. Now, we're going to drop the old link in the chat in case you want to join in on his cause. Feel free to do so. Now, I would imagine that this is mostly applicable to people in Georgia because he's a Georgia state senator, but he is asking for a zip code down here. And so, of course, you can complete that if it is something that you want to support. And certainly I will do the same. So this is what he said. He says, we must strip all funding and if appropriate, impeach Big Fani. And you see here that she is now issuing warnings. So Big Fani says there are threats coming. It's going to be a big problem. Says from Georgia authorities are stepping up security measures now as Fulton County grand jurors face threats after the indictment of Donald Trump. Here's what they put out from Atlanta. News release. Threats against Fulton County grand jurors. Of course, I don't encourage or endorse any threats at all. But are they checking with the FBI? Like, is the FBI involved in this again? Who's got eyes on Ray Epps? Where's he at? Where are these threats coming from? All right. So from Atlanta, the Fulton County Sheriff's Office is aware that personal information of members of the grand jury is being shared on various platforms. As the lead agency, our investigators are working closely with law enforcement agencies to track down the origins of the threats. We take this matter very seriously and are coordinating with our law enforcement partners to respond quickly to any credible threat and to ensure the safety of those individuals who carried out their civic duty. If anyone becomes aware, call 911. All right. So you get the gist of it, right? And you can see tensions are rising. Now, Fani Willis is coming under scrutiny from state senators. They're calling an emergency session. Donald Trump is keeping the pressure on. He is scheduled Monday to have a presentation where he's going to be presenting information on election interference. And he says that he's got proof of this thing and he was about to deliver it to us. But ABC News, apparently they've got some stories, some rumors from some Trump attorneys saying that his legal advisors are urging him to cancel the press conference, saying, hey, Trump, not a good idea. And this is something we've been talking about here. We've got the justice system, which is going to pretend it's still legitimate in these prosecutions, even though in my opinion it is not. And they're going to say that in order to protect the sanctity of the judicial process, we can't have Trump making statements outside of court. We're all saying, well, he is running for office, and one of the biggest issues in this country has been the weaponization of government against political opponents. So if you limit him from commenting on one of the consequences of this corrupt problem in America, that's a big problem for free speech, for political campaigns, for his entire base across America. It's not good. So we have these two immovable forces. An immovable force means non-stoppable object or whatever that phrase is, you get it. And we have the court versus Trump. And so Trump says, okay, well, if you want to indict me, then I'm just going to have a press conference and I'm just going to explain my view of this. The problem is the last communications, the last tweets, the last posts, the last attempts to do this are all being charged as crime. Are they going to charge him again? Trump promised a press conference to refute allegations. It came out in the indictment, but now ABC says it's now very much in doubt. Multiple sources familiar with the matter tell ABC News. I was looking forward to this. I think that Trump, if he is not allowed to criticize this institution and we all have to default that this institution is just a legitimate thing, this country is so far gone. I don't know where it goes because how can you, if you can't challenge the institution of the government itself, what good is democracy? That's what we do. So now he is going to be dissuaded from speaking about these very things. Sources tell ABC News that Trump's legal advisors have told him holding a press conference with dubious claims of fraud will only complicate your legal problems, and his attorneys are advising him to cancel it. Now, I got to be clear on this. From a defense attorney perspective, absolutely. It's like a nuts thing to do. They've already charged you with a crime. It's like, oh, you know, they're saying he committed a DUI. I'm not saying he did, but they say he committed a crime, and it'd be like him driving again, you know, drunk again. That's the analogy that they'd be charge him again. He said it again. We charged him the first time for making up dubious claims. Hit him again. And I think that they would do it. So from a defense perspective, it's like, yeah, you can't do it. Now, on the counterpoint, his best defense is in many cases a strong offense. If not, that is his only defense, is to go wage this battle in the court of public opinion, show people that what their claims are illegitimate, because I don't have any belief that Trump is going to get a fair shake in court. Did the Proud Boys get a fair shake? No. Did the Oath Keepers? No. They're sending Stuart Rhodes to prison for 18 years, and they want a lot more than that. He wasn't even there. So if he is not going to get a fair shake in the court of law, he's got no choice but to comment about this stuff. But certainly if he does, it's going to cause a complication. Trump announced the planned press conference with a social media post shortly after he and 18 other co-defendants were indicted. He said he would present a large, complex, detailed, but irrefutable report on the fraud in Georgia. Georgia Republican governor said, no, we did a great job, and other people are agreeing. So who knows if that actually happens or not? We'll see. Trump is keeping everybody on edge as per usual. One other thought about a potential response that Trump could file would be about a civil lawsuit claiming malicious prosecution. You see that Georgia does have a statute for this. It's not broad, but it says here, Chapter 7, false arrest, false imprisonment, and malicious prosecution. A criminal prosecution which is carried on maliciously and without any probable cause, which causes damage to a person, shall give him a cause of action. That's a pretty high standard. Okay? Fani's going to be able to justify this. Is she being malicious? Of course, we know she's being political and partisan and, yes, malicious. I mean, these people run for office in order to maliciously prosecute their opponents. They've said it on the record. So we know it, but can she justify it? yet. Can she make up some probable cause? Yeah, grand jury did it for her. So it's going to be very curious if Trump files anything like this. Not so sure we'll see it. More likely than not, the federal removal is going to be a big component here. But they're also going after other people like this guy. Georgia Lieutenant Governor is now apparently going to be under his own special prosecutor in the state of Georgia. And they ask him about this. They say, hey, do you regret what you were doing in Georgia? Like, do you think Trump won? What's your position on this? And here's what he says.
Do you still believe that President Trump won in 2020 in the state of Georgia?
Look, the questions that were being asked back then were that there were a lot of issues. We didn't have thousands of people coming to us complaining about something that happened during the election cycle, whether it was change of drop boxes or the absentee ballots or whatever, or the machines, whatever it was. The rank and file citizen that was complaining about issues were, and that's exactly as an elected state senator we were doing, was looking into a lot of the allegations that were out there. So, and at the end of the day, that's what you're supposed to do as an elected official. You're supposed to respond to your constituents. So I'm not going to apologize for responding to my constituents. Every election, there's always people trying to game the system. To what degree, you just don't know. And that was the questions we were asking back in 2020.
Well, there were good questions to ask because we know that in places like Michigan, there were people delivering 10,000 fake ballot registrations into Michigan clerk of the county. So there are good questions to be asked, but his point is, I think, deeper than this. He was the Georgia lieutenant governor currently. I think he was a state senator previously who listed himself as an alternate elector. So it's not just about Trump, okay? They're going after Kemp's lieutenant governor. They're going after everybody. They're trying to decapitate anybody who challenges their victory. So when they steal it again, they have a much smaller pool of people who are willing to step up and do something about it, lest they be charged with crimes, lest Big Fani decide to indict them. So they're trying to chill, first of all, any involvement pre-election, but any challenges post-election as well, lest you be prosecuted with felonies. This is why it is important that we have people like Senator Colton Moore stand up, call emergency sessions, and work towards investigating these political partisan prosecutors and impeach them, including Big Fani, if it so merits.